guys, welcome back to another Clash Royale video, and today we're going to be taking a look at my 5 personal favorite decks in the game at the moment, and this is of course after the boulder update and all that goodness. So hopefully you guys can agree with my list, and please go in and let's take a look at the very first deck. So for my 5th favorite deck, it is going to be this awesome Hog Ladder / Furnace deck, and the reason why I like it so much is just because the Furnace and the Hog Ladder do so much damage over time, and because all these cards in this deck are cheap, as you can see by the average elixir only being 3.4, you can just rotate through this stuff really quickly, and it's just a fun and aggressive little deck. Alright, so here is a quick replay of this deck, just facing another player. And for each of the best decks that I'm going to be showcasing, I'm going to chop up one game. I'm going to try to hopefully highlight the best clips and the best points in each game. So one of my most favorite things about this deck is that of course it does have the Furnace inside of it, and that thing has 40 seconds of lifetime, and you can use it as a very good distraction card for when facing opposite Hog Ladder decks. So our Hog Ladder and Barbarians just going to work on that tower, taking it out pretty quickly just because, you know, they got lots of damage. Now the only problem with this deck is that of course you're relying on your Furnace Fire Spirits to actually take out air cards most of the times, and your arrows. And if for some reason you don't have those 2 cards available for when going in for a push, your whole push can get wrecked by things like minions, minion hordes, and of course lava lunions and baby dragons, so it's pretty much not the best at taking out air cards. So for the main damage sources in this deck, I decided to go with the Goblins, which only cost 2 elixir, and of course the famous Barbarians. Now the reason why I like to use the Barbarians so much is just because when it comes to facing things like the Giant, the Royal Giant, and of course the Bowler, other Barbarians when surrounding them can be really effective. So right here guys, in the game we take out one of his towers. I get a little bit greedy going in for a 3 crown push. I of course know that it's not going to be successful, but I just want to keep his attention on my troops rather than actually taking out one of my towers. So good example, Barbarians just chopping up that Royal Giant. He's trying really hard with that Fireball to take out my Barbarians, but they're level 10 and they can of course tank that spell card. And just like that, we're going to win with this deck. Alright, so for our number 4 spot in our best deck video, I decided to go for a Pekka, Sparky, and Wizard combo deck. And for our building in this deck, I decided to go for the Elixir Pump. I just find that it's good at taking out things like defensive cards, or at least, you know, timing them out. So also as our spell cards, we got the Zap and the Arrows. You can swap out the Arrows for a Fireball just in case you are facing the 3 Musketeers a lot, as they can take them out. But here is our first game. We're facing a guy called Hello. He's got the Miner, the Princess, so a pretty decked out legendary deck. The reason why I decided to go for this replay as an example for this deck is because our opponent has Inferno Tower in his deck. Now if you place the Pekka and the Sparky beside each other, in most cases the Sparky can be used to take out the Inferno Tower before it does touch your Pekka. But right here guys, as an attempt, unfortunately my Sparky actually focuses onto his tower instead of the Inferno Tower. That means that our Pekka will get wiped out. Now here's a second example. This time we do it right. Our Sparky is charged up. It takes out the Inferno Tower, and now the Pekka has clear health and is ready to go in for an attack. Also guys, I backed up my Sparky with the Wizard just because whenever your opponent tries to counter with things like the minions or the minion horde, the Wizard is just good for taking them out. And of course, just like last deck, I got minions and goblins as their support cards just because they're cheap and efficient for what they do. And overall, because how well this deck is built, I thought that it deserved a place on this list. For our 3rd spot on this list, I decided to go for a Musketeer and a Giant combo deck. Now of course the only downside to this combo is that the Fireball and the Zap can be pretty devastating to this 10 elixir card. And also guys though, the Rage card is in this deck, and when you combine that with these 3 girls, they can just do lots of damage. Now of course if you do have the Lumberjack card, because he does have a Rage special ability, you can of course swap him out for the Rage card in this deck. So right here guys, facing just another foreign player, don't even know what his name is. Mini Pekka raged up, almost got to his tower, but right there gonna put down a clutch arrow combo to take out 2 pumps health and also his Princess. Gonna place down my 3 Musketeers at the very middle of the map. This way they can take out the Hog Ladder and hopefully take out his Musketeer and his Princess also. Now like said before, the only problem to this deck is that the Rocket, the Zap and Fireball combo, and of course many other things can take out the 3 Musketeers for lower than the cost. But of course guys, when played right, like right here, Rage Up Musketeers and Mini Pekka gonna take out that base so quickly and gonna give herself a nice lead. Also when backed up behind the Giant, the 3 Musketeers just have so much time to do work and to make their damage per second just really effective, but of course they're getting zapped down, not the best. Now another problem with this deck is that the average cost elixir is 4.3, which is pretty expensive. Normally I like to keep my elixir average below 4, but this deck is so rewardful and thrilling that I thought that it deserved a spot on this list. Alright, so coming in at number 2 is going to be this Dirty Roy Giant combo. Now what gave this deck the second spot on this list is that not only can it defend really well, but because you got the 2 princes and the rage spell in this deck, you can play really offensive at times. Now instead of using the elixir pump, I decided to put in the goblin spawner hut instead, not only because it's more durable, but the goblins of course over time can cause damage to your opponent's tower. Now some might say that the elixir pump might have been better than the goblin spawner for this deck, but I've been facing so many princesses and miners that the pump normally gets taken down before it can produce all 7 of its elixirs. In our first match, facing somebody with a Hog Ladder deck, which is a perfect example for our deck. So I'm going to put down my minions to deal with his Hog Ladder, but unfortunately this is going to be an early loss and an early fail, and we're going to lose our tower just like that. So our friend also does have the Roy Giant in his deck, popping him down and taking down some of my second tower's health. I'm going to of course though put down my Roy Giant, and now that we have almost 10 elixir, going to go for a crazy build-up with our prince. Now right here guys, I decided to put down the poison spell also, just because you know it can take out things that are going to be used to try and distract my prince, and also taking down those minions very effective and taking down some of that tower's health, and just like that going to tie this game right up. Also guys, here is a good example of our spawner using it to distract that Roy Giant, and to also use the goblins to actually do some damage to it as well. And a perfect counter to the princess is that as soon as she does get to the front of your base, you can put down the goblins when she is distracted to take that card out. Our friend is going to go for a 3-crown push. I barely clean it up by using my goblins right here on my minions, my bad. Now I'm going to back up my Roy Giant with my prince, a rage card, and of course my goblins, and just like that guys, with that quick jolt and surprise, going to take away with a nice 3-1 win. And overall, if you're a fast-paced player like me, then this deck is definitely for you. Coming in to take the number 1 spot is going to be this extremely frosty and fast-paced deck. A little bit of a warning though, we got the 1 elixir new Frosty troop, which is pretty hard to use, so just warning to you if you don't like to do micro that much. Alright, so this deck is very similar to our first deck which I showed you guys for our number 5 spot. We're also rocking the Hog Ladder and the spawner in this deck. Now the strongest thing for me in this deck is that when you back up the Hog Ladder with the Furnace, the Fire Spirits can actually clear a path for the Hog Ladder, for example taking out goblins, skeletons, and also doing damage to barbarians. Now for our replay, I decided to show you guys this one against a person with the Sparky, and the reason why is because I wanted to showcase how that 1 elixir Frosty card can actually be better than the Zap at times. For example, using it right here to distract the Sparky, which is also a little bit cheaper than the Zap card. So also guys, our barbarians are in this deck just because they're so good at taking out Hog Ladders and many other things, for example boulders, giants, and Roy Giants. Something special about this deck is that instead of packing the overused fireball and zap combo for spells, I decided to go for actually arrows and a free spell. Now if you're a very clutch player and you like to be a little bit cheeky at times, you can use a free spell just to give troops like the Hog Ladder seen right here more time on a tower to take out its health. But of course though, there's a lot of risk to doing things like this. For example, if he had barbarians and something else like goblins, my hog and my free spell would have been completely wasted in that scenario. And for our second spell card, which is going to be our arrows, I like to use it a lot to take out princesses, minion hordes, and also minions, just because it's a lot more safe than for example Zap, because their troops can still survive from the Zap card. For my last decision in this deck, I decided to use the Witch instead of the Wizard or any other type of nonsense, just because the Witch's skeletons are so good at distracting things like the Sparky seen in this replay. And also guys, the Witch's skeletons can be really good at taking out things like the Hog Ladder also. Now right here, I'm going to use my free spell to keep his Sparky at bay. I'm also going to use my 1 elixir Frozen Spirit to distract his Hog Ladder and to make sure that he gets 2 less shots into my base. Now I'm going to go for an awesome counter push. The Hog is going to completely deke the barbarians by jumping over to that cannon. And now with a very clutch free spell, going to secure his minions from taking out my Hog Ladder and just giving my Hog Ladder enough time to take out his base. And now with the arrows and with the furnace, his Hog should get distracted from going to my base, but a bit of a fail right there. And as long as you can play like we did right here,